Big goose egg. All right, cool. Well, welcome everybody. Um, I'm kind of talking about some stuff for the YouTube channel. So if we get some more attendees or if people join, you have questions, you can reach out. And again, we do these every day, Monday through Thursday, uh, at noon Eastern Standard Time. So today's Thursday. I'm Rob Grauer. We have a handful of other people in the lobby. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just start talking through some simple feature stuff that maybe you might have um, glanced past, but you can implement into your projects if you are looking for little simple features. So I made a couple little small projects or features that I think are low-hanging fruit for people that are looking to add some user functionality or expand their use cases in decisions. And I tried to keep these as simple as possible so that you can implement them without needing a bunch of data structures and data types. So we'll start with one that, the internet is ablaze about, but just the world's simplest ChatGPT integration. So I'm sure that if you are in this channel, you've probably heard of ChatGPT, you know the background of it, and you know that it can be integrated into decisions, but you don't maybe are scared of what that process might look like. And I can tell you that it's fairly seamless. The people here at Decisions have integrated a ChatGPT module that can be found in the systems folder, administration, and then features. And I can show you where that is right now, just to kind of bounce to it. But it's system, administration, and then features. And you have an OpenAI module that helps with that integration process and makes it super seamless. So once you have that installed, you will get custom steps to integrate with ChatGPT. So it is under integration and OpenAI, and you have a handful of steps, like I said, that are made on our end so that um, you can easily integrate with it. So you do need an API key from them, but as someone who just did it, I can tell you it is extremely, extremely simple. So again, I tried to keep this as simple as possible, and using a create chat completion step and a form to compare and contrast differences. Now, if you have a use case of this within your business, um, it can be expanded, obviously. I tried to keep this again as simple and as accessible as possible, keeping it concise, but I have just a simple form that says, what is the name of one object? What is the name of two objects, or object two, and then two buttons that say what are the differences and what are the similarities. So I have two create chat completion steps. I used a merge plain text editor to say, hey, can you describe the differences between object one and object two in the message section? And it really is just that simple. Here's a message section again. Can you explain the similarities between object one and object two? And then I had a form that populated that answer, that conversation, as an input on a multi-text line in a form. So you could store this data. You can use it in other places. The way I currently have it set up, it's not really being stored anywhere. It's just a quick flow with pop-ups, but hopefully you can maybe see the integration and its simplicity and maybe a way that you can utilize it in your project. So the debug process would look something like this, or the flow process. It pops up. I can say, what is the difference between, and this could be anyone you want or anything you want. You could type in apples and oranges. You could type in um, athletes. I'm not much of a sports guy, but here we are. So you could say compare and contrast. I put object one is Kobe Bryant, object two is LeBron James. And if I click what are the differences, ChatGPT in just a few moments, maybe 5 seconds, will give you a nice curated answer that you can then use to populate other things. You can use to uh, filter data, compare metrics, but it really is just that simple of mapping inputs and outputs into that create conversation with ChatGPT. You can hit thanks for the information and it sends us through. So again, there are some limitations within an integration that is this simple or an application that is this simple, but really, again, um, you can see that it runs that data through it, and I'll kind of run this through one more time, and then we'll look at the debugger, and then we'll bounce over to one more feature. We do have an attendee. So if you are in the section and you have a specific question, feel free to reach out in the chat. If you have any specific questions or if you're just trying to learn, I have some more stuff we can kind of just go through. But if you have a question, please put it in the chat and we can kind of address it. So, okay, thanks for the information. So here's the simplistic walkthrough. You have output data, apples and oranges. And then if you were here earlier or you're watching on YouTube, just notice that it auto-filled that prompt that I used with that merge plain text. Can you explain the similarities? And it took that oranges from object one and apples from object two, and it runs through. A thing to keep in mind is that you do have a certain amount of free tokens within ChatGPT, but if you're using this super regularly, you'll have to purchase tokens from them. But they are for this type of tokenization, they are extremely affordable. So and it gives you the answer there. And this, again, you can map into a later step. You can store it to a database. You can use that information in other parts of your flow, but it just integrates a quick, reference point to a ChatGPT conversation that you could then use for later steps. So again, there it is, the assistant and the answer. So I don't have anything mapped to the outputs. So there's not going to be anything here, but I could output this data and use it in another way. You can use it for math. You can use it for, quick overviews. But there you go. So ChatGPT, the quickest integration possible. And it's just dragging and dropping these create completion steps. Nope, sorry, create chat completion. Uh, create chat completion. And we have a reference article on our documentation that explains a lot of more of this stuff. But you get options, and some of this you have to pay, use more keys for. We're just using 3.5 Turbo, which caps out at 2021 data. So if I asked who won the 2023 Super Bowl, it would not be able to tell me. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Another quick thing that I think is, a low-hanging fruit for integration and to take your projects to, another level is some organization stuff that people might just slip by. I know that when I was learning and working in decisions, I would struggle sometimes with keeping myself organized in flows. So what I think is a good practice, I would maybe, keep yourself within limits here, but when working in the decisions canvas, you can run into uh, this kind of blue screen paralysis or blue dot paralysis, where you're looking and all you see is a bunch of blue dots and you're struggling to figure out what steps connect to other steps and what um, processes in your flow are related to the other processes because the blue lines and, or sorry, the blue dots and the lines all just end up looking like a blur. So one thing that I think is simple that is just a, a low-hanging fruit is organizing your steps with um, custom shape settings. So for this particular project, there's basically four paths. This is for an insurance claim. It's a project in our training. If you ever went through our training, you might recognize it. But there are four paths in which the data can get sorted. There is a failure path up top, there is a pass path in the middle, and there's two more failure paths on the bottom for why an insurance claim might fail. But when looking at all these blue dots, it can be a little overwhelming. So the simple one is just say, okay, I just know that, to keep myself organized, all of these do this a similar step. So I can just add a custom color to those in shape settings, and you can add custom shape sizes as well. Again, I'm not going to mess with this too much, but you can add custom colors to keep yourself organized in that capacity. You can also, change the height and the width of those icons. If you have stuff that is a big priority in your project that you want to click on often, you can make it slightly bigger. Um, I wouldn't recommend making things too much smaller. Another fun custom one that you can do is with images. So if you have a project and you know that certain things need to happen, you can go through and add custom images to your steps to keep yourself organized. So if I know that I need to send an email to Jared, I can put an icon on Jared so that when I look at the flow, I know from a distance that is something involving Jared, rather than just seeing a bunch of those blue dots. Or, not to punish Jared, I put my own picture on there. So you can assign a form. And again, you can change the size of these icons. You can change the images, you can change the color, you can change the text, but it's just, little steps to keep yourself more organized. And it's just really something that you can just implement with just a couple of minutes where you say, rather than having a um, traditional step that's blue, you can add a custom and keep things organized. I know that these two steps go together. They're purple, and I added custom icons where we're generating a single ID, and then for multiple people, it is a subflow that validates their insurance provider information versus an API. So I added this image to kind of remind me of that. Um, so again, you have a couple options there. The custom image options are pretty seamless as well. You can do it from a URL. You can do it from a built-in decisions image. So on here, under image settings, you can go to I made small Snoopy, but you can hit add image, and you have options from our library, custom options, which is where I found those ID generation ones I was referencing a second ago, from a file, which again, that's where I got Sir Snoopy himself. Um, or you can do from a URL as an embedded image, which I would probably recommend either coming from a file, using from the library, or keeping it as a default. But this could help with really keeping yourself organized and making sure that your flow, what is doing what, and you don't get that blue dot and line, paralysis. So let's see if we have any questions. Are there any questions in the chat? Salaja? Okay. Well, we got some steps in there. Um, I could poke around a little bit more. Here's one more thing that I think is, another easy to integrate feature that a lot of people may not know, is design patterns. So in a project, you might find yourself utilizing, I'll go back to that insurance claim project. I might find myself continually utilizing the same data types and the same input mapping and the same output mapping. And it can be a little bit exhausting to continually map inputs and outputs of the exact same stuff for every single flow form and all that stuff. So there's this option for create design pattern on the top right. I'm going to call this Rob's I9. Well, we'll do it in the I9 project because that is a better one. So an I9. So this is a project, again, if you went through training, you might have recognized, but we'll call this Rob's I9 pattern. So what this allows you to do is create um, for lack of a better word, maybe a template so that you can define what inputs for I9 are on certain data or designer elements as well as your outputs. So you can say, okay, I want that same thing to be the output, I9 outputs. And how that looks as a functional feature is once I save it, now maybe you have noticed that this top toolbar, some of these options have changed. I have create Rob's I9 pattern, I have create other, I have edit, rather than just having a bunch of flows. And the options are still there, but underneath these dropdowns. You have your defaults and you have my new pattern that I just made. Now, what is an advantage of this? It was like I was saying a moment ago. In these flows, rules, truth tables, forms, when I create one, test for design pattern, you may notice that I already have those inputs assigned for me. I have those inputs that can then be pulled by various designer elements. Oh, create step, geez. They can then be pulled quite easily. Let's do a form actually, or something like that. And it just gives you, well, I guess a form, I still have to create an input though. But the same thing can be done for forms too. So you can have a design pattern for your form where you have another cool, feature while we're here. Why not? People glance past this, but it is super helpful. If I hit enter, it'll just save this text box. But on this form, if I hold shift and hit enter, it creates that label for me at the same time. That's kind of nice. So we got a little button here saying I'm done, like I'm about to be. Boom, feeling great. Now, notice I now have those inputs for I9 from that custom data type. So, or custom data structure. So that can save you a lot of time on input and output mapping if you know, hey, I'm going to be utilizing in this particular project or in this particular application, I'm going to be using the same inputs and outputs over and over and over again. You can create those design patterns and it's, helps you make a template so that it'll save you some time on mapping ins and outs. There we go. Those are my things for today. So I will stay on the line if anyone has any questions, but rather than just ranting into the darkness, I will kind of secede. So, and that is an open invitation. If you're in the lobby and you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat and I can help you. But if not, I'm just going to start to secede my time. Well, oh, we got one. Yeah, nice. Maybe. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and end the session then. So thank you for watching the video on YouTube, or thank you for joining if you joined. And thank you for all my coworkers for joining as well. Super appreciative. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out, but we are going to end the session now. So thank you guys very much. Have a good rest of your day. See you on Monday.
Thanks, Robert.